Welcome to another episode of That's Some Crazy Shit with Kelly and James. I am Kelly and my co-host is James. What's happening?
What's going on, my sister? Everything is good here in the recording studios at Baez Towers.
Wow, Baez Towers?
How about that?
You upgraded in a very short amount of time, my friend.
That's how successful we are.
Yeah, hey, Baez Towers, I like it. One day, not yet. I like it though, I like it. So, James, it's been a crazy couple of episodes. We've had some really good guests. We've learned some stuff. And today we are going to learn all about numerology, and not your basic type of, you know how you can go online and get your numerology and then kind of predict your future, whatever. Not that. Nasyim, she takes numerology and she uses it more in a coaching style. So she takes the woo-woo and she kind of pairs it with like practicality and science so that, she can help you like move forward, like truly move forward in your life. I think it's cool what she does. She calls herself the Numerology Coach.
And this is I've noticed our guests too, they're not all mainstream. We talked about numerology before, but how it's applied was different then. Now we're talking about numerology, but it's a different type of numerology. So it's not all mainstream woo-woo. That's another thing. She doesn't do your basic type of numerology. She has a little different type of spin the way that she does it, and I'm sure that we'll get into it with her. So I'm excited. So welcome to the podcast. Well, I guess I should wait, back up. Are you ready, James? I'm ready. Let's do it.
Welcome to the podcast, the Numerology Coach, Nasyim. Nasyim, thank you so much for being on the podcast and being a part of That's Some Crazy Shit with Kelly and James. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome. Welcome, James.
How are you, my sister?
I am good. I'm so excited to speak with you. Me and James were just talking about numerology the other day, and so I'm so glad that you are coming on as a numerology coach. And I'm sure we both have questions, and I always tend to ask like all the questions. So James, I'm going to let you ask questions first before I do, because I tend to like ask. I don't want to like dominate. So I'm going to like sit over here and I'm going to let you like ask the questions first.
Alrighty. Well, my first question is, I guess for you, Nasyim, is how is what you do different than what people typically do?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, James. When you go online and you Google numerology, you're going to find about 1 million plus websites, and they're all going to be talking about personality and what you can achieve in life and different facets of future forecasting and so forth. That was the foundation of my understanding of numerology as well. But what I do that's different is I actually try to help people understand what their spiritual purpose is on this earth based on their numerological chart. And so we go to a deeper level of awareness in their life journey. And I use numerology as a guide, almost like an assessment tool. Like if you were to take an assessment tool for a vocation or for career, I kind of look at it like that, and then have an organic, really robust conversation with the client. And of course, there is going to be a little bit of that predictive stuff in there, but it's really about finding the soul's purpose more than anything else. And so that's a little bit different than what you'd find outside on the internet.
So kind of like a blueprint.
A blueprint. I like that. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Blueprint.
So where does it come from? Where does numerology come from?
So it's anyone's guess, but from what I have understood, numerology was actually founded about 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, somewhere around Greece. And it morphed into, I guess, more of an Asian or Middle Eastern practice from that perspective. And then it's now used in a lot of different ways, including feng shui is actually part of a numerological umbrella, I guess. It's kind of interesting if you go back in history and look at how it's influenced things. I've even read that Aristotle and also Queen Elizabeth I, of course, that's King Henry VIII's daughter that ruled England. She actually used a numerologist to help her guide and lead at that time. And, so it's really wide and varied. From my personal experience, my father grew up in India. He was born there. And he was around a whole plethora of spiritual gurus and religious gurus, and his family was very political, and they had a lot of influence at that time in the late 40s, around the independence of India. So long story short, there was a lot of exposure that he had to different things and different cultures, and even within that space. And so he really took what he learned and started to develop his own numerological system. It's a different charting system, and the numbers tend to mean similar things to what you'll find, in a book or on Google, but he takes a slight variation to that. And then he also infused some astrological aspects of astrology into his numerological system. And so that's actually how I ended up doing numerology the way that I do, which is so different than everybody else, because I used my father's system.
Very cool.
So I noticed on your website, the Numerology Coach, that you talked about energy assessments. Mm-hmm. Give me an idea for what exactly that means and how you do that through numerology.
So thanks for asking that, because actually that's more of a I guess a universal way of approaching numerology rather than coming right out and saying numerological assessment, because I didn't want people to have a preconceived idea of what they were going to experience whenever they came to me for a numerological assessment. So numerology really is about your energy, and it's about the energy that was around you at what I call the breath of life. So the first breath that you had as you entered into this world. And I believe that your numerological chart is based on that period, and you come and you experience and you live and you grow through that energy in this lifetime. So that's what the energy assessment is. Very
cool. I have a question. You mentioned feng shui. How is feng shui tied into this?
Well, just to be clear, I'm not a feng shui expert, but I do know that when you go to a true feng shui master, and again, this is someone who would have a lot of experience and actually studied the practice, they do use your birth date, and they'll create a numerological chart in order to have a specific feng shui experience or design or set up in your home or your workspace. So they actually don't just walk in and say, oh, you need a plant here by the stairwell for good energy, or your door should be facing east. It really is dependent on the person and whomever the dominant person is in the household. So if you have 2 or 3 people in a home, they'll do the charts of everybody, and they'll try to create a space that's energetically balanced for everybody in the home. But of course, whoever the dominant person is, obviously they take precedence. So, yeah.
I did not know that. Did you know that, James?
I didn't know that. I think the longer we do our podcast, I think it's interesting how so many different disciplines tie in with each other.
Yeah, I had no idea they used your birth date for feng shui. God, that's interesting. So you had mentioned that your numerology is a little different, I guess, than what we see out there. There's like you said, mm-hmm. There's a lot of websites that are out there where you can get numerology done. So explain to me how you take this information that, from my birth date and then apply it in a different way that now it becomes coaching?
Good question. So what I have found in my coaching education is that most of what certified coaches do, and I'm talking master coaches, people that coach executives, all the way to people that coach teens. So it runs the gambit, but if you're actually investing in your education and getting the certifications, you'll learn that coaching for the most part is about creating true awareness of the person's intention in anything that you do in your life specifically. So what I mean by that, and I'll make it a little bit clearer, is that we run around this world with a lot of layers, and we don't understand that sometimes their reaction or their response or the inability to see beyond personal blocks is because we don't actually understand what our intention is in trying to achieve a goal or trying to have purpose or be purposeful in what it is that we're trying to achieve. So a lot of coaches, again, it's not therapy so much, but they'll help clients to remove some of the layers, right? And when they remove the layers, things become clearer for the individual. So what's interesting about numerology is that I'm able to just slice right through to the core of that individual. You cannot hide from me whenever I'm looking at your numerological chart. You can hide from yourself, you can hide from your family, your friends, your coworkers, but you can't hide from me. And so numerology is different in coaching because as a client comes to me, they'll have an initial energy assessment or numerological chart session with me. And we'll go straight to, this is where we're at. Okay. And so your purpose here, Kelly, is XYZ. Your soul is yearning for this lesson in this lifetime. And from that perspective, we start the coaching. And what's amazing is a lot of times people are like, wow, I didn't know that you could really understand me at that level with numerology. And also at times they'll say, I had this idea in the back of my mind that this is what I wanted to achieve, but they create a labyrinth in their own mind. So we think a goal setting is going from point A to point B, and B is achieving the goal. But what so many of us do is we create these mazes. We say, oh, well, I want this experience, or I want this goal outcome, but I don't want to be ostracized from my social network, or I don't want to have my coworkers think of me poorly, or I have this political agenda, so I have to include or work around all these issues, or I don't want to make my mom upset with me, So it's kind of like we let those other influences come in, and we forget what our true intention is along the way, and that's when people get lost. That's when they say, well, I don't know what I want anymore, or I want a career change because I'm so unhappy. I've spent 30 years in this career and I don't know what I want to do. And I'll say, well, let's look at your chart, because from your chart's perspective, it says that you're here to learn how to serve people. You're here to inspire people. Maybe you're here to be a teacher. Maybe you're here to be a podcaster so that you can actually expose all these wonderful concepts and ideas to the world out there, that would not otherwise be received. So, there's so many things that come from the numerology within the coaching world. It's just, it's really incredible, actually. Even for me, sometimes I'm like, whoa, how is that even possible? I'm impressed sometimes just with the clients. Like they really, it's a joy. I'll say that it's a joy.
And that's good. If you enjoy something, you put your heart into it.
Yeah.
And when Kelly and I first started this podcast, I was really hesitant because of what people would think, because this isn't mainstream stuff. But as we've gone and done more episodes, it's like I'm letting that go, and I'm just accepting all this stuff you guys, you people are bringing to the forefront. It's really cool.
It is cool.
Yeah.
So Nasyim, how do you go from, okay, I know how to do numerology, to, I think I'm going to open up this coaching business and help people. Like, how, what made you decide that this was the best way to use what you could do with numerology rather than just go and, you know, do what other people do with numerology? It's like almost like you took it to another level. But how do you get there?
Right.
So you remember I was just saying how we create mazes in our mind, or labyrinths in our So my true objective in life was to become a super successful business professional. And I did not want to speak publicly about numerology because I thought, just as you mentioned, James, that it would be not well received. And I actually had early experiences as a youth, just not knowing any different, where people rejected me or became very hostile. And I wasn't really prepared for that. So as an adult, I was like, ooh, all this woo-woo, crafty, numerology stuff. I'll do it with my family. It'll be like a party trick. Hey guys, let me do your numerology. But I'm not going to talk about it, And so to answer your question, I really actually became a executive business coach because I wanted to help people in their business. I had a very successful real estate career, and just divine intervention. I had a few opportunities to go and do public speaking events with groups of real estate professionals, and it was well received. And I just got, the bug. I just had to help people. And so from that perspective, I became a coach. And then as I was going through my coach training at the University of Texas, I had a lot of experiences with other coaches where they were saying, this numerology thing is something that people really need. And I really rejected that idea for quite a while. And so I was coaching, and somehow this numerology became an organic process, and I was just including it, but I wasn't really telling my clients about it. And then eventually I decided, I can't lie to my client and not be honest with them and ask them to be honest and authentic with me. And it was really when I received the support of some of the professors that I had at the University of Texas. And then also I did extra coach training with Be Above Leadership, which is a neuroscience-based coaching group. And they trained us on the neuroscience. And I was finding that there was a lot of information that is being discovered through neuroscience that I kind of already knew because of the numerology. And that's when it was like, wow, there's just so many coincidences here. And it's really a shame that my own fear is preventing me from helping other people this way. So that's how it all developed. And that's really the journey. It wasn't ever, I guess it wasn't an intention that I had to come forward and have a numerology practice.
You were secretly doing it to help your patients, you said, but you weren't telling them that you weren't doing it, correct? So because you would have, if I were your patient in the beginning, you had my birth date, so you could do my chart and learn all these things about me and help me, but not necessarily tell me that you use numerology to find out all these things.
Right, because coaching is really about an organic experience and discovery for the client. So a coach that tells a client you should do this is not really coaching. They're consulting at that point. Right. A coach would say, where are you now and where would you like to go? And that's how the conversation starts in coaching. And so, I would just kind of wait as a coach. I would just wait for the client to arrive, already knowing where we would, be journeying, I guess. Yeah.
It's funny. You said something about there being coincidences, and we've talked about this before. You may have one or two coincidences. You play it off as a coincidence. You get several in a row, and it becomes much more than just a coincidence, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. It's interesting the way that you say that. It's true, because I think we all sit around, including myself, sometimes like, God, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Please just show me a sign. And then you get about 20 signs in a row, these coincidences, and you're like, okay, God, please show me a different sign. I don't want to go there.
Not that sign.
Yeah.
The other one.
That is so true. That is true. So what what are some of I noticed that on the website too, that you had talked about holistic numerology coaching. So what is that? What do you mean by holistic? Is that what you mean by, you said earlier, organic, or explain that to me?
So I like to go into the body. I like to take people on a journey through numerology. What typically you'll experience with me is you'll have a numerology session, a numerology assessment, if you will, on the front end. And then we start to really discover, your true purpose here, your true intention in life. And then we start to work into the body. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of science, and you've probably heard now that you're, doing all these interactive sessions with different people, that there's so much that scientists are learning about people's motivation and how they behave. And, for so many years, everybody thought it was just a mental game, but now they know it's a whole body game. And you have, more influence coming from your gut and your heart than you do it from your brain sometimes in terms of decision making. And there's even a couple of books out there. One that pops out is How Emotions Are Made. And they talk about the fact that people actually predict their emotional state before they have it. And this is all very, very deep research that it's alarming how detached we've become from our natural instincts. So when I say holistic numerology coaching, so I take people back to, I guess what would be their, how do I say this? Primitive instinct almost. And then from there, we're able to go into the body and say, okay, now what information is showing up for you that you didn't have before? And it's almost like an open book at that point. People who go through that experience are just absolutely incredibly surprised at how much awareness they have in their bones, in their muscles, just with different exercises that we do, different meditations, different activities, really, with moving the body and paying attention to the sensations that come up. It's pretty awesome. It's very cool.
It does sound cool.
So it's almost like you're imprinting that in your muscle memory, right?
Yeah. You have to consider, we can talk about this, but we can talk about numerology too. If you want to know a little bit about the charting, I'll tell you that in a minute. But what they found is that you have millions and millions of neural synapses in your brain. Okay, well, you have billions in your gut and your heart. And so if you consider that every cell in your body has its own conscious, every cell in your body has its own conscious. So when you say collective conscious, that is what we are as human beings. We're a collective, we're a body of collective consciousness. And so when you let go of, I have to drive the right car and I have to have the right job and I have to, say yes to make everybody happy, and you stop paying attention to these external influences and you really go back into who you are as an individual and what messages you're receiving from a very, very subtle conscious level, you start to really live life in a whole different way. It's a completely different ballgame. And so there's, again, a lot of science behind that. This is not just some crazy numerologist talking on this podcast. Wow, yeah. And we could go on and on and on about that, but it's pretty awesome. If you just do a little scratching and digging around, there's so much new information that's available to people today that talks about all of the awareness that your body has and holds.
And there are some people who want that science to confirm it to them, so that's good.
Yeah, that's true. Some people do need that science to make it true, I guess, or
legitimate.
Believable. Yeah, legitimate. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. Legitimate. You had talked about the charting. So is the way that you chart different from, say, typical numerology?
Yes, and thanks for asking that. So basically what you'll find with most numerologists is that a lot of them use your name. So the letters in your name have different numbers and representations for that. And then some people will also use your birth date or a combination of the two. I use your birth date exclusively in my system. And the way I actually design the chart is completely different. I handwrite everything. There's usually about 30 or 40 numbers, depending on what it is that I'm looking at specifically, that I'll have to chart out in order to really get a very detailed assessment of the individual. And then from that perspective, the numbers are also, from how I read charts and how other numerologists read charts, are slightly different. There's some general principles that are the same. Like I use a system that goes from 0 to 9, which is pretty typical in most numerological charts. You'll have a life path number. And for those of you listening, if you look at your horoscope in the newspaper or online, that's your astrological sun sign. Well, in numerology, the equivalent of that sun sign would be your life path number. And from there, you have all different kinds of other numbers that talk about different influences and expressions and intentions within your specific chart. So that's some of the basics. And then there's also master numbers, which would be 11, 22, 33, and so forth. And then if you go online and you Google life path number, typically it's going to be the same as what I will produce for you, but everything else is pretty much different. So, yeah.
So when somebody comes in for a session, if somebody said, okay, I'm thinking that this may be for me, is it over a period of time that we're coming back? Is it, how does it work? Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of times people think, I'm going to go see a numerologist, they're going to give me this information, and then I'm done, right? So how does it work with you?
So I do that as well. So if people just want to come and have a numerological energy session with me, and we'll go through your chart and we'll talk about intention and kind of oversight of what your chart says, we can do that. I get a lot of pleasure from doing more long-term coaching. So, generally people will come in for a session, they'll do an initial assessment with me with the numerology, and then from there we'll do coaching. And that's, up to the client really, but generally speaking, it takes about 10 to 12 sessions for clients to really start not progressing so much, because you really do start progressing from day one, but to actually see and feel and create behavioral change that gets them more in alignment with their natural energy. It takes a little time to really develop that.
Well, just like any coaching, even physical, if you're going to go take coaching lessons or something from a coach for golf, you may see immediate improvement, but it's that time that you're spending with them, that's really going to pay off in the long run.
And being consistent, I guess, in whatever changes, you are going to make, based on the coaching, if you're, because that's the thing. I think most people want to make changes, but God, sometimes it's so hard to stay consistent, right?
Stay the course.
Yeah, no, I hear that
every day. It's like, oh my God. So yes, I think that's hard. But it sounds like numerology kind of gives you that edge to really kind of cut through all the minutia, right? Because maybe people come to you and they're not 100% forthcoming, but then you can kind of dig a little because you have the chart and maybe get them to kind of reveal what it is that you already know, so that they can start to work toward fixing whatever the issue is.
Yeah, and I guess, that's beautifully explained. But what I would also say in addition to that is, if you think in your own personal life, if there's a family member or friend that just knows you, right? They just know you. And if they see you, they can say, okay, Kelly, I can tell you're having a bad day. What's going on? And you might think to yourself, how can you know that? How do you know?
That's me.
It's just something in your eye, right? It's like, there's something going on. So yes, so it's almost like that experience where, I'm not going to call people out and say, okay, well, listen, you're just a total jerk. Let's start there. Now, how can we fix you, right? No, it doesn't work that way. It's a gentle process. So, but I do tend to, we all have bad days. So even if, someone that's struggling with relationships or whatever, we look at both positives and negatives of the chart, because it's a matter of spectrum, meaning every number has its own spectrum of energy, and there's always positives and negatives to everything in life, but in your numerological chart as well. So, and then there's the combination charts too. So if you have a spouse or children or even bosses or, some people who, before they hire a new employee, will reach out, believe it or not, and say, look, just give me a heads up on what I need to look for with these people. And so that's possible as well.
I would never
you 3 years ago?
That ever. Wow. So I would imagine that because of COVID, that you're able to work with people anywhere because of Zoom and Skype, and so people don't physically have to come to you for the coaching. You can do all of this through Zoom or other platforms, right?
Absolutely. In fact, since day one of my coaching practice, I've almost exclusively been online. And so when everybody finally started using Zoom last year, because I'd been on it for a while, all the people that used to tell me, no, I can't work with you, Nasyim, because you're not coming to me in person. I'm like, hello, welcome to the party. It's like when you're the first one that arrives, and you're like, okay, where's everybody else? Yeah, absolutely. I have clients in Hong Kong, in London, in Australia, in India, even South America and Spain, and all over the US. So yes, absolutely. I can work with anybody.
So if somebody wanted to work with you, how do they find you?
And where are you based out of, Nasyim?
I am based out of Texas, Houston area, and you can find me on the numerologycoach.com. That's my website. Easiest way to find me is right there. You can book a session online. I do little videos here and there. I'm not as consistent with the videos though, but I definitely am available to anybody that's interested, even if it's just wanting to learn more about numerology. I do some classes on occasion. You have to look me up for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
It's cool. What you do is cool, and to take numerology and pair it with coaching and use it in a kind of a different way, like I said, kind of taking it to another level, is really cool, because I think now it's where it's less woo-woo, right, and more applicable to making some really positive changes in your life. It sounds like I think it's cool what you do.
Thank you. I don't know how much more time we have, but if you guys have a few extra minutes, I'd love to do your charts.
Yeah, we have about 7 minutes, so go for it.
Okay. All right, Kelly, go ahead. Give me your birthday first. And we're just going to do a very high level overview. What is your birthday?
7/29/67.
1967. Okay. 7/29/1967. Okay. All right then. So, and then James, what's your
I'm
birthday?
11/9/66.
Okay. So Kelly, very, very interesting chart. You actually are a life path number 5.
I knew that.
5. You did. Okay, good. So
Just
5
for my numerology. That's the one number I know.
You looked it up. So 5 is in my chart style. It's all about Mars. Mars is like the spice of life. Mars energy definitely comes with a lot of dominance at times, but they're also very interested in different cultures, different food. They want to explore. They want to travel. They don't want to be tied down. Don't try to get me to stay in one spot. That's a 5. 5s generally are, when you think about like the Renaissance period, where everybody was exploring everything and they had so much music and beautiful things come about. That's part of that 5 energy there. But you're also very introspective, and you have a lot going on inside that you don't always express outside, except that you do have some air in your chart too, which kind of keeps you a little bit more balanced than some other people. But I see that you are definitely moving into more of a spiritual life, and that's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And I think you've always internally kind of had that feeling that something was really going on below the surface, but now you're actually doing the exploring part, and you're just going to be amazed with what shows up for you in life.
Wow.
Biggest challenges that you might encounter is that sometimes people might feel that you're too abrupt, or that you actually come to them and you don't let them hide. Also, you kind of hold up a mirror to people and they show up, and if they don't like what they see, it's not because they're not liking you, it's because they're not happy with themselves. So you'll find that does happen. A lot of coincidences, a lot of deja vu. You're going to be experiencing all of that. So that's a little high level on your numerology. And then James, let's see what you got here. Also very spiritually inclined. Both of you have this like huge amount of spiritual connection, and you're both going to be really opening up to that even more. I see a little bit more confusion in your earlier life, James. It looks like there was a lot of emotional instability, and maybe even some questioning about what is my purpose here, where am I going, so on and so forth. Let me finish looking at something really quickly here. I'm looking at your so very interesting. Okay, so I have your, go ahead.
Oh no, I like the way you go, very interesting. I'm like, okay, I'm ready.
So you also have a very specific path here. And it's interesting the two of you have connected the way that you do, because I do see that you both are very different, but there's a lot of complementing of each other. Like one yin, the other is yang, and then sometimes you might switch, meaning that, James, I see that your life path number 6 is a Jupiter sign, and Jupiter is all about serving. And really it's also about bringing balance to things. But you have a heavy influence of Jupiter in your chart, which, yeah, that's very interesting. So you really are here to serve others, and your spiritual purpose in life will really be opened up to you as you are bringing new awareness and new light and new learning to others. So very much in alignment with what you're doing here on this podcast. I also feel like if you've ever done anything along the lines of nursing or caretaking for others, or I don't know what you do specifically, but even in a food or health way, so you can actually bring benefit to people from their bodies, that would be well supported in your chart, because that's actually you kind of rowing with the tide, if you will, of your chart. So it looks like there could be, just on a little, just note this part of your chart, it looks like there could be a little bit of necessity for perfection and demanding perfection from yourself and others, and that might get you into trouble a little bit here and there. So just ease off the brakes.
You're talking to James, right?
There's no such thing as perfection.
Yeah. I'm talking to you.
You need to balance that a little bit, James.
Balance that, James.
But as you find balance there, you'll actually open up more, and more goodness and wonderful things are going to be coming to you in your life. So anyway, a very high level for both of you. That's kind of what I see just as an initial overview of your charts. And then of course we can always spend hours on that, but we'll pass for now.
That is so cool. Thank you so much for being with us today. I truly appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, and I think it's cool.
Yeah, and I like the way that science is starting to catch up with this stuff now, and I like the way you have your own personal spin on it. Very cool. And
I gotta say, in that short period of time, incredibly accurate.
Yes.
I'm glad we only have a little bit of time, because she's digging into some stuff maybe you don't need to be knowing,
Y'all are awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you. Well, once again, Kelly, my mind is blown. How accurate these things are.
In that short period, I'm talking literally 5 minutes, she told both of us stuff that she was just incredibly accurate. I'm glad she didn't have more time, because I'm like, maybe you shouldn't be talking about stuff you shouldn't be knowing. And as far as the perfection thing for you, yeah, James, can't all be perfect, man.
I thought that was actually directed towards you myself.
But she said it was you. I thought it was me too, but nope. She said it was you. So, yep. Well, I have learned to embrace the flaws of life, especially doing this podcast. Editing. Anybody who's ever edited anything, a podcast, whatever, you know what? This shit sucks sometimes. And if it's not perfect, so be it. So yeah, I've let the whole perfection thing go. I've let it go. Now it's your turn.
I'm getting there. But what I thought was interesting too, that she's also, we've had several people say how we're the yin and the yang to each other. We have a balance, my friend. And I think that's what's going to pay off for us in the end. We do. So the last time that we spoke, we had decided that you would have something for random bullshit. So do you have something for random bullshit? Well, actually, I do. Okay. We had talked about, remember we did an episode about Skinwalker Ranch?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm sure our listeners know there's a thing on TV about Skinwalker Ranch, and I was we read and did the thing about it, and I was watching it, and now they found that there's petroglyphs there that depict the mesa, and they have different constellations. Okay, one is called I can't remember, like Draconis or something. They had an astrologer come out and explain it. Okay, and the crazy bullshit once again is they have all these little coincidences. Okay, and it looks at, think of the big picture. How do these Native Americans hundreds of years ago, know that these constellations are out there, and how is it tied to Skinwalker Ranch? And then, I'm thinking, we talked about there being portals there. There's some crazy shit going on there, Kel, that we don't know about yet. And it's only going to get more crazy.
We may never know everything about Skinwalker Ranch. Nope. I mean, there's, they've been talking about this place for a long time. There's a lot of crazy shit that goes on. And part of the fascination, I think, with Skinwalker Ranch is not knowing. And I don't think we'll ever truly know everything that's up with Skinwalker, or why that place has that energy the way that it does. I don't think we'll ever know. And I think part of it, that's the fascination. It's like, if they ever catch Bigfoot, right? And because, when they catch Bigfoot, if they ever catch a Bigfoot, they are going to kill it and do scientific experiments on it. And then the fascination with Bigfoot is over.
Well, you say catching Bigfoot. There are rumors that the government does have in possession live Bigfoots.
And okay, back up. And where exactly do they keep these big, would you call them big feet?
What do you call Bigfoot? The plural of Bigfoot.
Where do they keep all these Bigfoots or big feet at?
Big feet at? Well, that's when, it's all these, top secret military installations. Do you keep them at the same place you keep the aliens?
Isn't Bigfoot supposed to be an alien?
Some people think so.
Okay, then the answer would be yes. Right?
Well, do you keep them in the same, level, or do they have their own level?
I don't know. Do they have, a place where they have different levels of aliens, James?
They do.
Because I've never heard this. I'm gonna go with this because, I mean, why not? I've never heard this, but hey, if you say so, I believe you. Different level.
All right, and if you want, we could talk about this in another episode in a little more depth.
Yes, I would like to, because this is just random bullshit. And so you've taken us down the beginning of what could be a really awesome rabbit hole. But we're not going to go there because we have next week and we've come to the end of our time. So I appreciate you, James, as always, as my co-host. Remember, you can get at us. We are on Facebook at K&J's Podcast. We are on Instagram. We are on I already said Facebook. Instagram. I said Instagram. What else? Twitter. Thank you. We are on Twitter. We already determined, and I think I told you guys, but just for the next time, not LinkedIn appropriate. And we are also on YouTube. And so the big ask that we are asking you guys is to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I know there's nothing really there now. We know it's not like the YouTube channel of YouTube channels. We know this. We get it. But if you subscribe, then as we progress toward, really going to our channel, you'll already be there, is what I'm saying. Because I really think we're headed.
You'd be one of the first.
Yeah, you would be one of the first. And it's good to be first. It's good to be the first one at the party. Yeah. It's good to be the first one in line. It's good to be the first one across the finish line.
We were always the first at the party, and we were always the first in the line to the adult entertainment centers. Bars, if you will.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good. It's good to be first. So you should say to yourself, hey, Kelly and James, you're right. I want to be first. I'm going to go to YouTube, and I'm going to subscribe. There you go. See? James?
I think we should send a shout out to those people when they do. And remember, keep your minds open, people.